Are we ordinary leaders or are we leapers? There is nothing wrong with being an ordinary leader and leading an ordinary life, but there is a great fulfillment. Remember, we want to be fulfilled and lead a purpose-driven life in being an ordinary human being who is leading an extraordinary life.
Now here's a video, actual footage of a guy losing a bike race. And when he discovers that doing the same thing over and over again isn't really the best method. And that perhaps if he tried to use aerodynamics a little differently, to play by a different set of rules, he could figure out how on the downhill he could get ahead of everybody else.
The quality of your life, I really believe, comes down to your level of leadership. To be able to influence the thoughts, the feelings, the emotions, and the actions of another human being, that's what leadership is. And quality leadership, obviously authentic leadership, is one where it's servant leadership. You're looking to influence those thoughts, feelings, emotions, and actions for a greater good, not just for yourself. Everyone can be a leader, but there are different types and different styles of leadership. And I believe that leadership is a skill. It starts with having something that you're committed to that's larger than yourself, a vision that's bigger than yourself.
And I could understand that it really was because I was grounded. I've done was doing and continue to this day to do the consciousness work. I work at staying awake. The investment in the stakeholders, the people who you are serving, that connection between the people who you're trying to serve and sell to is equally as important as the people who you're buying from, equally as important as the people who are, supporting you financially, as your stockholders if you are, a public company. So I always understood that there really was no difference between me and the audience.
Yeah, I think when we think leader, we think like pinstripes and shoulder pads and the C-suite office. And the truth is, I've been in those offices and couldn't find a leader to save my life. And I've been around everyday people that would never identify as a leader and been surrounded by them. So I define a leader as any person who holds themselves accountable for finding the potential in people and processes and has the courage, the guts to develop that potential. And that's all of us.
Ordinary leaders execute in order to have more. Leapers execute in order to impact more.
I was really young starting out. I was looking for answers to leadership, and you look up in Webster's dictionary leadership and It says one who leads.
Helpful.
Really helpful. I believe that leadership is really a skill of influence. It is the most important skill that any human being can master. And I don't think of leadership as a position. I see it as a skill, a tool that all of us have to have. In other words, the quality of your life, I really believe, comes down to your level of leadership. Other people don't have to follow you to be a leader, but you have to live life on your terms. And the first person you have to influence is yourself. Whether you're fit or fat, whether your kids are on drugs or not, is who has more influence, the guy on the street corner or you. Whether you're fit or fat is, can you influence your own hands, your own body, your own mind to do what's necessary. So I think to be able to influence the thoughts, the feelings, the emotions, and the actions of another human being, that's what leadership is. And quality leadership, obviously authentic leadership, is one where it's servant leadership. You're looking to influence those thoughts, feelings, emotions, and actions for a greater good, not just for yourself. And I think the people that master that are the people that you know about. They're the captains of industry. They're people that are celebrities because they've learned how to influence people. They are some of the greatest teachers, some of the greatest scientists, because you can't just come up with ideas. Ideas will die on your lips unless you become a person of influence, and that's what leadership is.
One of the things that I've seen you say in the past about leadership is that in order to become a leader, you need to destroy the limitations within your own mind. What does it mean to destroy a limitation inside your mind? Well,
first of all, if you look at a business, the chokehold on the growth of any business is always the psychology and the skill set of the leader. And it's 80% psychology and 20% mechanics, meaning so many small businesses, the owner might be an incredible innovator. Maybe they write incredible code. Maybe they're a tremendous influencer, but they don't know the economic side of their business, right? And they find themselves getting in trouble because somebody's giving them financial information after the fact. They don't have true financial intelligence to make decisions, and they get caught up.
Can you give me an example of a business like that? You don't have to name names.
Yeah, no, I'll pick my own examples. I had several companies early in my career that were near bankruptcy because I would sit down and I knew how to produce produce products that would change people's lives. I knew how to market. I knew how to build teams of people. But what I didn't know was finance. So I'd look and say, okay, how are we doing? I go, oh, you got a great, you got a 20% profit. You got $2 million in profit in those days, little tiny company. And I come to the end of the year and there was no cash, right? I didn't know that profit is a theory, right? And so just not having that skill, or someone might be really great in finance, but they're not any good in marketing. So sometimes it's a skill problem, but 80% of it, you can solve those skills. You can get those skills if you can change your psychology. But when you accept that, oh my God, the market's down, or oh my God, the economy in our area is down, when you allow the environment to control your psychology, you're not going to win. There's an interesting guy named Mel Fisher that you may remember from back in the 90s. He was, if the name lingers in your mind, he was a guy that spent, I think it was 27 years, if I remember correctly, looking for this Spanish galleon that was supposed to be filled with gold. Do you remember that?
Yes, of course.
And he found it after 27 years. Now here's my question for you, Jim.
Yeah.
5 years into it, you've worked every day for 5 years and you found nothing. What are you gonna do? And how are you gonna raise more money? Because you have run out of money. 10 years into it, 15 years into it, 20 years into it. So I say to people in business, I say to them, you wanna understand psychology? Here's the biggest challenge for most businesses. They think they've maxed what's possible because they think they've tried everything. Once you believe that, your belief controls you and you miss the innovations, you miss the answers. This guy found that gold because he had 3 beliefs. First belief was there's a treasure out there, and he was certain it was out there, even though he didn't have any absolute evidence. And that certainty drove him. But if you knew there was treasure in your business, that's not enough. You got to also believe I will find it. And you also have to believe it's worth it, right? If without those 3 beliefs, he never would have found it. And so changing the psychology of the leader is what will change a business faster than anything else. Changing their skills will also do it. But lots of people have the skill and they don't execute. And you and I both know, execution is more important than knowledge. Knowledge is trumped by execution every single day. And that execution comes by changing the psychology. What's the scarcest resource we probably need in our society today? It's great leaders. I mean, look at the political process that we're going through right now. If there's any evidence that we're hurting for leadership, you see it in government, you see it in businesses. There aren't that many great leaders. Now, so then the presupposition for a lot of people will be then, well, it must be this innate talent. There are people that are born and upbred, you may be born with more certainty, like people are willing to take more risks. There certainly are people of that nature. But anyone can be a leader in something that they decide to become masterful in. You can be the leader of your own life. Everyone should lead their own life. You should be the leader of your family. And so I think everyone can be a leader, but there are different types and different styles of leadership. And I believe that leadership is a skill. It starts with having something that you're committed to that's larger than yourself, a vision that's bigger than yourself. If there's a large enough vision, if you have enough passion for that vision, then you're gonna have enough drive to actually start to execute. And then leadership is the capacity to discipline your disappointment. Because you're gonna have to go through failures, and instead of making failures, you have to learn from those. And then it comes down to the skill of influence, once again. And so anyone can learn, anyone can develop a vision, anyone can uncover their passion, anyone can learn to influence. That's a skill that can be learned. So yes, leadership can be taught and leadership can be learned. Can everyone be a leader? The answer is yes, because there's so many different things to lead in, and it's not a situation like you have to follow me for you to lead. I just have to know what it is I truly stand for and follow accordingly.
It's not necessarily a zero-sum equation.
No.
My leadership doesn't take away from someone else's leadership. The fact that as a boss, people have to follow me doesn't mean that they themselves can't be leaders.
What a great boss wants is someone who is, they want to hire leaders, right? You want to hire people that are smarter than you are, if at all humanly possible, right? Now, some people's ego doesn't believe that's possible.
1 or 2, I think.
But I really think if you really look at what will free you as a leader is recruiting other leaders, training other leaders. That's what allows an organization to grow. Because what does a leader do? They get the result. They find the way to victory. They find a way to create breakthroughs with teams of people. They don't just do it themselves. Otherwise you can't leverage, you can't grow.
How important is that? Where on the hierarchy of things that people need to lead is that ability to connect?
I really believe in order to influence people, you got to know what already influences them. The mistake that we make is we don't connect enough to figure out who this person is, and what most of us do is try to lead other people by influencing them the way we'd be influenced. They try to influence their kid to clean the room the way that would make you do it. But even though they're your kid, they're different than you. And so they're going to do it for a different set of reasons than what you would do it for. You might have done it because someone told you to, but your kids can tell them all day long that's not it. There has to be something else. It's a sense of freedom they get from it, or a sense of mastery, something that's going to move them. So I always say there are two things that influence everyone. If you want to be a leader, you have to know how to change other people's states. A person is in a no state, a person's in an angry state, a person's in a frustrated state. You have to be able to influence their state, because if you change their state, you're going to change the result they get. But the second thing you have to understand is, what are people's blueprints? Blueprints, my shorthand for what are their values? What do they believe? What do they fear? I always say to people that life is found in the dance between what you desire most and what you fear most. If I want to lead you and support you, I got to know your goals, your desires. I got to know what you're scared about, what you're fearful about, what stresses you out. And if I understand that, I can communicate in a way that'll inspire you to maximize, not only when I'm here, that's management. Leadership is I'm gone and you've raised your own standard and you're going to continue to perform at a higher level.
Are we ordinary leaders or are we leapers? There is nothing wrong with being an ordinary leader and leading an ordinary life. But there is a great fulfillment. Remember, we want to be fulfilled and lead a purpose-driven life in being an ordinary human being who is leading an extraordinary life. There is a great satisfaction, leaping beyond success, contributing and impacting society as we are fulfilled every single day, and we are evolving as leaders. Ordinary leaders are preoccupied with self-wins and personal acquisitions. Leapers are preoccupied with the triple win. I win, you win, society wins. If I bring it to today with the AI example, an ordinary leader will invest in AI because we only want to make money out of AI. A leaper will invest in AI that is ethical AI. Why is so? Because we want to program in AI the human benefit, so we get to the triple win. I win, you win, society wins. And by the way, I could tell you that the prediction of people who are working with AI is, if nothing is done, AI, like in 2025, it won't be me giving this program. It will be the virtual me. And probably you will not need me. But there is something very beneficial with leapers. Remember, their access to the capital C, capital A, the quantum field, which make the leapers absolutely program anything within themselves and in the field for the benefit of humanity, for all of us to win. This is the difference. Ordinary leaders, their main motivation is personal and financial success, as I said. For a leaper, personal and financial success are very important. They are metrics and means to go beyond the self. So remember, being successful alone is not fun. For an ordinary leader, they still accept the old adage, the means justify the ends. For a leaper, no. The means matter more than the end. It is the journey that matters for a leaper. Ordinary leader, personal goals and missions are key. For a leaper, of course, personal goals and missions are keys, but they have to align their goals with the greater purpose, which is the key. They align their goal with the mission of their organization if the organization is aligned with their purpose, but they align also their goals with the field of technology, the field of science. We were talking about AI. We want to align AI to our greater benefit as human beings. So alignment is a key for a leaper. It's all about alignment. And we studied so much during this course about alignment, aligning our mindset, aligning our emotions, programming our emotions in order to align them, align our mindset to our own passion, to our own purpose, to the contribution to you. It's all about alignment. Don't ever forget that. That's the biggest difference between a leader, ordinary leader, and a leaper. For an ordinary leader, future is given from the past experience. We did this, it didn't work, let's not do it again. For a leaper, future is generated from a future possibility, from the future. And we have the means and the tool to access the future, listen to the future, and perceive from the future. As everything, the past, present, and future are happening at the same time in the field of CA, of the quantum field, of capital C, capital A. Everything is happening at the same time. So we have access to the future in the quantum field. Ordinary leader does not like to change their beliefs. We are set in our beliefs. It worked for us. We're going to work this way again. For a leaper, we're willing to challenge our beliefs because we never know. In the future, there are infinite possibilities, and we're not set in our own ideas and beliefs. For an ordinary leader, personal mission is personal gain. For a leaper, the personal mission is aligned with greater good. For an ordinary leader does not like to share their skills or secrets of their success. For a leaper, the leapers like to coach and invest in others around them in order for others to succeed as well. Ordinary leader does not like change. A leaper adopts easily to change because we're adaptable human beings. Our adaptability and alignment are key, are very important for our success. Like what we talked about, authenticity, integrity. These are ingredients for our magic formula of leapership. Ordinary leaders do not like to deal with emotions. I mean, this is the taboo that we don't talk about. But for leapers, we like to understand and manage emotion. We understand if we master emotions, we master our destiny. And we also have learned how to isolate an emotion of success and attach it through visualization in order to manifest quickly. And also we have learned how to shorten the refractory period of a downward of an emotion because we know how to get out of it with our emotional logo and how we use these tools in order to accelerate success and leap beyond it. For ordinary leader, financial earnings are the ultimate measure of success. Another zero at the bank is to the right side is what we look for. For a leaper, passion and fulfillment are the ultimate measure of success. Because we know beyond a certain zero to the right of your bank account, it's not going to bring you fulfillment. And fulfillment, we've studied it deeply within this program, and we have access to fulfillment. Ordinary leaders execute in order to have more. Leapers execute in order to impact more. The more I impact people positively, the more I impact the world positively, the more I impact the field positively, the happier I am. Ordinary leaders, vulnerability is considered a weakness. For a leaper, vulnerability is an emotion like another and is considered authenticity. It's considered a sign where we can work on in order to improve. It's a guide. Ordinary leaper is quick to justify their actions when things go wrong. A leaper is quick to take on responsibilities when things go wrong because we want to learn more. What went wrong and how we learn from it and leverage it to our advantage. For an ordinary leader, conformity is encouraged and rewarded. For a leaper, innovation is encouraged and rewarded. For an ordinary leader, short win is the motivator. I want to get it now, and if I get it now, that's it. For a leaper, creating a legacy is a motivator. So leaping collectively from the future, leaping collectively is a practice of conscious accessing being when leadership is generated from a future possibility aligned with our true self and guided by our shared collective wisdom. Alignment is the key. Alignment is the key for a leaper. The leap occurs when our inner purpose meets the collective purpose and aligns with higher wisdom, aligns with the field, with the quantum field, with the field of energy, but also with the field of science that we're in, with the social field that we're in and their needs for the collective good.
Now here's a video, actual footage of a guy losing a bike race. And when he discovers that doing the same thing over and over again isn't really the best method. And that perhaps if he tried to use aerodynamics a little differently, to play by a different set of rules, he could figure out how on the downhill he could get ahead of everybody else. And this idea that innovation might pay off now and then leads us to a whole bunch of thinking about management and what we ought to do next. Thinking that's confusing. So I came to talk about the confusion. I came to talk about the fact that we got a whole bunch of it wrong, and that it's possible, and there's an imperative, that we think about it differently. So I've only given this talk once before, so it's a little disjointed, but I hope it's going to plant some seeds under your skin and make you think about it. The first big idea is this: leadership and management are different things. Leadership is not management, and vice versa. Management dates back to Henry Ford, to scientific management, to Frederick Taylor, to the idea that if we could build a job where an obedient person can do it and create value, we could pay people a lot. Henry Ford was able to go to the workers of Detroit and give them a 10x raise in one day, because he said, if you come on the assembly line and do what I tell you to, I'll pay you a lot of money. And that spread. It spread to the idea that we could use it to make truffles and chocolates, because as long as we get the system working efficiently, we're fine, right? And it went from there to another food business. This is one of my favorites. This is somewhere in India. They didn't have enough room to put the place where the guy rolls next to the place where the guy cooks. And so this is brilliant management engineering, because one person took an innovation and then figured out how to make the system more efficient. You may not notice because there's no sound, but when he's about to throw it, he hits the rolling pin so the guy knows to get ready. Anyway, what we discovered then is that big factories are more efficient than little ones. Big organizations where people are doing what they're told work. The River Rouge plant that Ford built was so big it took all day to get from one side to the other. That this idea that there's a top-down method not only works for cars, it works for almost everything. So this is an old slide, 8 years ago. How far every person in the United States lives from a McDonald's. Now you can imagine that now it's even more yellow and less dark, because McDonald's figured out that management works. That a McDonald's manager is not supposed to innovate, not supposed to start selling spaghetti during the slow times to see what happens. That the job of people at McDonald's is to crank it out. That cranking it out and doing what we're told again and again, that works until it doesn't. And when the world changes, we're in trouble. When the world changes, management always fails because we don't understand how to go forward. And that's fine, you say, I don't live on Easter Island. It's fine, I don't have a book depository. Well, it's not fine if, say, for example, you used to work in newspaper publishing because you can see what happened. It's not fine if you used to be a travel agent because you can see what happened. It's not fine if you're one of the 4 million people who drive a truck in the United States for a living because self-driving cars. And it's not fine if you live on the planet Earth and the weather changes. Because the thing is, the world is changing whether you want it to or not. And it's changing faster than ever before. So in the face of all of that change, we're not going to be able to manage our way out of it. We're going to have to lead. And leadership is not the same as management. Okay, so the next idea is that responsibility and authority are different things. That managers need authority. They tell people what to do. But leaders need to take responsibility. So I'll give you a little example. If you do a Google search for the great Arturo Toscanini, you have to type in the great Arturo Toscanini, you get all these pictures of the maestro. He was the most famous and important music conductor of the 40s, 50s in the United States. He worked with Disney. He was the conductor of the NBC Orchestra. So when he recorded Beethoven's Fifth, he could record it like this. It's a dirge, it's slow, it's a chance for the great man to show everyone that he knows exactly what he's doing. And it became the standard. That's the way it's supposed to sound. Well, my friend Ben Zander, who is not the self-appointed great Ben Zander, who has no fancy job, who has no fancy orchestra, he recorded a version of Beethoven's Fifth recently, and it sounded like this. And people say that's wrong. It's too fast. How dare you? Well, Ben can point out that's the way Beethoven wrote it, but the thing is, the how dare you part is really interesting because he has no authority. The key is he's taking responsibility. He's saying, it's on me. I did the math, I did the research. If you don't like it, you don't have to follow, but it's on me. The great Viktor Frankl said that one of the problems with the United States is that we have a Statue of Liberty, but we don't have a Statue of Responsibility. And this is the reason why people have trouble stopping being managers and starting to do leadership. That managers say, do this because I said so. And leaders are able to say, let's go over there. Who wants to come? That if you've got a special hat that says you're the boss, you're probably a manager. But that what leaders are able to do, what leaders are required to do, is not ask or demand authority, but insist on taking responsibility. So when we talk about lean, and we've been talking about it a lot, it's sort of a failure parade today, the word lean actually means wrong. That what it means to manage or lead or organize or do anything with lean is that you are willing to be wrong. That's all it means. So you know those meetings you complain about all the time? The ones where everyone has to wear color-coded clothes and sit there pretending that they are paying attention for hours in a row? Why do we have those meetings? We have those meetings so that we can just wait out everybody else until someone else will finally take responsibility. Because if that's not what we're trying to do, why don't we just send a memo? There's nothing actually happening in the meeting other than people absolving themselves of responsibility. We got taught this and a lot of other things about management in school. Education is not the same as school. It used to be similar, but now that they are very different, right? That we go to school to take standardized tests, to get good grades, to get into a famous college, so we can go to the placement office and get picked by a company to do a steady job and go to those meetings and absolve ourselves of responsibility and then one day get authority so that we can be in charge. School was invented by industrialists, by the very people you work for. It was invented 100 years ago, 150 years ago, because we didn't have enough compliant factory workers. It's too hard to get somebody who's grown up, running through the woods, solving their own problems, figuring out interesting stuff. It's too hard to get that person to come to work for 9 hours a day in a dark room doing the same thing over and over again. So we invented school so they'd be ready. But we don't educate people. We don't teach them to solve interesting problems. We don't teach them to lead. And as a result, by the time you get to work, of course, you're surprised, disappointed, angry, and upset that you have to do that other stuff. Because we forgot to help you understand something else is going on here. The alternative is to see what happens. See what happens if you don't. See what happens if you do when you think about being a leader. So that meeting you hate, what if you just didn't go? What if you just didn't show up and did something important instead? So those people that you're constantly harassing with your marketing material, would they miss you if you were gone? What if you showed up as a human instead of a pawn in a giant corporate system? What if you figured out how to take responsibility? This is the hard part, because you don't want to be wrong. We taught you that in school. You don't want to take responsibility. We taught you that in school. But what Eric has pointed out, what this whole lean thing is about, what innovation is the repeated process of being wrong, learning from it, taking responsibility, and doing it again. So, I have a surprisingly large number of sports references in my talk. I'm not exactly sure how they snuck in, but here's one of them. They play this game in the United States, football. This is the Army-Navy game from this year. And what you see here is Navy's behind by 1 point. There's a few seconds left in the game, and Bennett Mooring is the kicker. If he gets it in, they win. If he gets it wrong, they lose. Well, he missed it. And at the press conference afterward, Bennett Mooring did something stunning. He said, 1, it's my fault. It's not the weather. It's not the center. It's nothing. I just missed it. And 2, I wish we had won, but I'm glad it happened because I learned a lot from the process that we just went through. Isn't that what education's supposed to do? We don't have a trophy shortage. We have a shortage of people who haven't figured out how to learn from what happens. And that's what we can teach our kids, and that's what we can teach our coworkers, and yes, that's what we can teach ourselves.
Every one of us is a leader in some way. It's not just for people in charge. Like everyone is. Can you expand on that?
Yeah, I mean, I think when we think leader, we think like pinstripes and shoulder pads and the C-suite office. And the truth is, I've been in those offices and couldn't find a leader to save my life. And I've been around everyday people that would never identify as a leader and been surrounded by them. So I define a leader as any person who holds themselves accountable for finding the potential in people and processes and has the courage, the guts to develop that potential. And that's all of us. I mean, I recently asked John Meacham, I said, what would you say to people who don't think they're leaders? And he said, then you don't understand democracy. We all have to lead. Wow. And so I loved that. I think we're all leaders.
You've interviewed all of these people and you've studied leaders, and you try to find patterns. What are a few patterns that you always see showing up in good leaders?
Yeah, this was the shock for me. In fact, this is my 23rd year as a researcher, and this is a 10-year study. And it was the first study I'd ever done where the answers across all of the research participants was the same. So what we asked was really straightforward, from special forces military to creatives to all over the world, NGOs. We asked, what's the future of leadership? Who's going to be leading in 5 years, 10 years, and who's going to be gone? And the answer was, we need braver leaders. And so when we drilled into what does that mean? I mean, I love the word brave, I love the word courage, but they're gauzy. Like, what does that mean? Yeah. It came down to 4 skill sets. The ability to rumble with vulnerability. That means when things get uncertain and hard, we don't tap out. We don't tap out of hard conversations. We don't tap out of feedback, giving it or receiving it. Mm-hmm. Second thing is that we really learn how to live into our values. I mean, the most daring leaders we've talked to are very clear, not only about what their values are, but also what the behaviors are that support those values. Like, there are a lot of big, fun leadership words like integrity, but like if I walk into another organization and see an integrity like poster with an eagle, like what is that? It's like, what does that mean?
I don't know what it means. You were on Sky Mall and you were bored and you go, it's only $10.
Sky Mall. No, Sky Mall. And you don't know what it means. So these leaders have operationalized it into behaviors that they hold themselves accountable for. The third thing is building trust, talking explicitly about trust, because no trust, no teams, no good work. And the last one is huge. And I learned this from working with a lot of professional sports teams. You've got to know how to reset after failure, disappointment, and setbacks. You got to learn how to get back up when you fall, because that's part of being brave.
So I come from a centered place. I come from a focused place. I come from compassion. It's just my nature. I come from a willingness to understand and to be understood.
Right.
And I come from wanting to connect. I mean, the secret of that show for 25 years is that people could see themselves in me. All over the world, they could see themselves in me. And even as I became more and more financially successful, which was a big surprise to me, I was like, oh my God, this is so exciting.
You mean you got more than that 30,000?
I got more than 30,000 by the time I was 30. But what I realized is through the whole process, because I'm grounded in my own self, that although I could have more shoes, my feet stayed on the ground, although I was wearing better shoes. These are kind of cute today, too. So I could keep my feet on the ground, even though I could get more shoes. And I could understand that it really was because I was grounded. I've done was doing and continue to this day to do the consciousness work. I work at staying awake. And being awakened is just another word for spirituality, but spirituality throws people off and they think you mean religion. When I was hiring people for my company for looking for presidents, when people would come in, I'd say, tell me, what is your spiritual practice? And literally would throw, people would go, I'm not religious. Or I said, I didn't ask you about your religion. I asked you what's your spiritual practice. What do you do to take care of yourself? What do you do to keep yourself centered? What do you do to and one woman started crying, that's not the person.
So that's a sign.
That's a sign. So to answer your question, everything is fueled that comes from me really wanting to be a better person on earth. And this is what I know to be true. The reason why the show worked is because I understood that audience, my viewers, the people who watched us every day and would come and just like you all did, get tickets, and they would come with their family. You all just came across campus, but that's good too. But people would come from all over the world just to be there with their aunts and their mothers, and they'd come with their cousins, and there'd be a few men in there going, what the hell? How did I do this? Or saying, well, I went to Oprah with you. I went to Oprah. And I'll at least give me clear for 3 or 4 weeks. I went to Oprah with you. I had such regard for that. And I just had a conversation with John Mackey, who runs Whole Foods, and has written this fabulous book. You should get it, called Conscious Capitalism. And he was talking about how the investment in the stakeholders, the people who you are serving, that connection between the people who you're trying to serve and sell to, is equally as important as the people who you're buying from, equally as important as the people who are, supporting you financially, as your stockholders if you are, a public company. So I always understood that there really was no difference between me and the audience. At times I might have had better shoes, but at the core of what really matters, that we are the same. And you know how I know that? Because all of us are seeking the same thing. You're here at this fabulous school, and we'll go out into the world and each pursue based upon what you believe your talents are, what your skills are, maybe your gifts are, but you're seeking the same thing. Everybody wants to fulfill the highest, truest expression of yourself as a human being. That's what you're looking for. The highest, truest expression of yourself as a human being. And because I understand that if you're working in a bakery and that's where you want to be, and that may be what you've always wanted to do, is to bake pies for people or bake cakes for people or to offer your gift, then that's for you. And there's no difference between you and me, except that's your platform. That's your show every day. So my understanding of that has allowed me to
reach everyone.
To reach everyone. And there's no way that you wouldn't, because that's what I truly feel.
Welcome to a new level of leadership that's been waiting to be born. You're part of this birth. You're in the field, from the field, affecting the field. You're part of the whole system. You're needed. You're a needed limb in that field. We are at the cusp of creating a new world, and we are all responsible for this creation. None of us are off the hook by virtue of living in the world. Collectively, we are creating the world we live in, every single one of us, with each breath, mindset, and emotion state of being. So let's envision the world we want and start to practice its manifestation through the 4 leap steps. Collectively, let's leap into it. We can do it. You now have all the awareness, knowledge, tools, and faith supported by your new understanding to create a new world. Imagine in your mind's eye right now a world driven by our emerging future instead of being driven by the past. Instead of the world of war and hunger, imagine a world of passion, of beauty, of wellness and well-being. Imagine a world inspired by our highest potential instead of a current reality driven by our limitations and our past emotion set. Imagine a world where leadership is expressed from a limitless depth of being instead of from a sense of lack or never enoughness. Imagine leadership manifested from the true self and higher calling instead of the leadership manifested from the ego-made self who constantly feels threatened and restless. Imagine a world co-created from our intuitive future instead of a default world generated from our past paradigms of what is possible. Imagine a world where people know how to embrace their entire being. They are aware of their body, their pineal gland, their sixth sense, and have easy and habitual access to the field of conscious awareness and creative intelligence, in addition to the fields of human construct. Imagine all of it aligned, as we've aligned in this program. Imagine a world moved by the power of compassion instead of competition and greed and lack. Imagine a world enthused by our interconnectivity and not from the worship of our individual self. Imagine a world where leadership is not about the one person at the top, but is inclusive to all. Remember our Canadian geese model. Imagine a world led by leaders who are committed to peace and collaboration instead of power and ego. This world right now may sound utopic, yet this world also exists right now in this moment as a possibility in the field of conscious awareness. In the quantum field, it exists. We have co-created and programmed it together, and we can access it together by continuing to do the work we have been doing together through Leap and Evolve and affect other people this way.